What's up everyone, OJ here. Welcome back to another discussion video. We're going to be talking about the Japanese game industry and what's going on here because recently we got an announcement that The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 3 will be coming over to Nintendo Switch in 2020. And this kind of puts one of the last frontier Japanese developers that are holding out on putting out multiple games on the Nintendo Switch, finally able to get something else out outside of Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, and that is Falcom. So Falcom is an interesting developer because they are a hardcore RPG developer in Japan, but their base, according to them at least, is mostly on PlayStation, which is probably true, but at the same time, like they noted themselves, there is a big switch over to the Nintendo Switch here in North America, but also in Japan as well. But they still have more sales from what they've seen with one title, with Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, that more of their base in Japan at least is on PlayStation systems. But I think that would change if they decided to launch things day and date. I think it'd be a little bit different because obviously the PlayStation 4 compared to the Nintendo Switch in Japan, the sales, the Nintendo Switch has already passed up the PlayStation 4, actually a little bit back. But let's talk about this because I think this puts a lot of Japanese developers in an interesting conundrum heading into the next generation with the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox. Because it's like, okay, well, these systems are coming out and obviously they're going to be very good, they're going to be powerful and all of that, but development shouldn't be too much more, but it probably should cost a bit, obviously developing with new tech. But then you also have this Nintendo Switch system, this little Switch system here, which isn't going to be anywhere near as powerful as those systems, but you already have a base of 10 million units plus in Japan, and by the time that the next Xbox and PlayStation come out, that's going to be like a lot bigger, right? That's going to be much bigger. And then here in the US, or more like the rest of the West, and then combined total, you have 50 million units plus. And by the time that the next systems come out, obviously that's going to be a lot higher with like Legend of Zelda and Animal Crossing and all the other games that are going to be coming out. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Japanese developers do. How much support does the Nintendo Switch get going forward? Is it going to be day and date with other systems? Are they going to make unique versions for the Nintendo Switch? Are they going to invest that time and effort? And here's what I think across the board. We can kind of get through Bandai Namco and Capcom and Square Enix, Koei Tecmo, and all the different companies here. So we'll start off with the major ones. For most of the major companies, so we're looking at Square Enix and Bandai Namco. Those are the two big ones in Japan, and also Capcom. Those three are pretty much going to hold pat in terms of what they do. Square Enix is going to work with Nintendo in order to get games out, whether it's old school remakes of stuff like Secret of Mana, or it's stuff like Final Fantasy 12, things like that. They're going to work with them in order to get that type of stuff. And sometimes we'll get unique games like an Octopath Traveler or like a Bravely Default. However, the bigger stuff like the newest Final Fantasy, stuff like Tomb Raider, all of that, that's probably still going to be PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. Now, moving on to a company like Capcom, we're going to continue to get, I think, what we've been getting. We're going to get old games, we're going to get compilations, we're going to get some stuff like that, maybe ported over from like PS3 or 360, so ports essentially, and maybe a new game or two every now and then from them. I do foresee some type of Monster Hunter game. I think that there is going to be a unique or exclusive Monster Hunter game to the Nintendo Switch at some point. I don't know if it's going to be announced next year or the year after, but I do feel that Monster Hunter will be coming over to Nintendo Switch. Not Monster Hunter World or like a Monster Hunter World 2 or like a Iceborne or anything like that, but a unique Monster Hunter game that's built more in the vein of Monster Hunter Generations that we got on the Nintendo Switch already. So more of that hardcore Monster Hunter experience that old school fans kind of know and love, and less like the Monster Hunter that we saw on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the PC. Now, if we're looking at Bandai Namco, they're interesting because because what Bandai Namco's done is that they've brought over some of the new games, and they've been starting to bring over some of the other Unreal Engine 4 titles, right? Some of their newer ones that were released this gen, and they've also brought over older games as well with compilations and stuff like that. So we can expect to see more of that from Bandai Namco. Expect to see stuff to where maybe like the new Dragon Ball Fighters comes out, right? Unreal Engine 4 game. Maybe it doesn't run at the highest frame rate that'll run on PS5 and all that, but it'll be on the Nintendo Switch. So stuff like that whenever they make the next Xenoverse, because that's been huge on the Nintendo Switch. Maybe we'll see like a Pokken tournament from them. So we're going to see some exclusives where they work with Nintendo because their relationship are really tight with Super Smash Brothers, Pokken, and all of that. And then we'll see some of the other games that they've always done. But Dragon Ball Z is a certified big seller on Nintendo platforms or on the Nintendo Switch. So I don't think they're going to give up that cash cow when they start transitioning over to the next gen. But I think another thing to note before we kind of get into the rest of the companies here, we start with some of the smaller ones like NIS and Koei Tecmo and all of that. One of the things to note here, guys, is that if you look at the Japanese gaming industry, like overall in total landscape, they always take a bit of time before they really put out the big games on the next generation platforms, right? So if you look at it, like let's just go back to this current generation, you look at like Monster Hunter, Dragon Ball Fighters, a lot of these big games didn't come out until years after the system launched, and they just kind of did ports and other stuff beforehand. So we could see something similar to that with this upcoming generation. I'm not exactly sure what they're going to do, but I don't think there's going to be these massive huge games like day one or even like year one. I think there's going to be some ports, maybe a game or two here and there, but for the most part, they're going to kind of play it safe, let that install base build up a bit, and then kind of go in. Or maybe even still release PlayStation 4 and Xbox games, because let's face it, these systems are going to be backwards compatible. So if people want to play a PlayStation 4 game on their new PlayStation 5 or their new Xbox, they're going to be able to do it. So you have to also consider that when we're talking about what's going to be happening in the landscape, what's going to get development resources and all of that. But I think that it's almost impossible, pretty much impossible for any of these companies, considering all the different games that we've gotten from them, for them to ignore the Nintendo Switch with how many systems are just simply on the market. It's just too big of a market and people are just buying too many games. Now, if you look at the rest of the companies here, so we talked about Falcom, I think support's really going to be wavering here and there. I don't think they're ready to go full in on the Nintendo Switch, but they're going to be in a conundrum. They're going to have to somewhat pick, because there's no way that they're going to be able to transition to the PlayStation 5 anytime soon, and their base of people who play games, I don't think it's going to be a smooth transition over to the PS5 for a lot of these people, considering what PlayStation is kind of doing, kind of going for a more of a Western focus this time around. I mean, even more than the PlayStation 4. So I don't see a lot of people transitioning over, and I see a lot of their base probably just sticking with the Switch or the PS4. So I think Falcom is probably going to stick with Switch and PS4 going forward, but it's really going to be based on how some of these other games sell. Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana did well here in the US, so I'm expecting the new Cold Steel game also to do well here in the US and the West too. Now, if you look at like Koei Tecmo, I think they're going to be pretty much like they were right now at this point as well. They're going to support the Nintendo Switch. They obviously believe in the system. They've been getting a number of sales from the system, so I expect that to continue with Koei Tecmo. I really don't expect there to be too many games that miss the Nintendo Switch. They've got the development down. They've been making their engines for the system. They've been helping out with Nintendo on their games as well, like with Fire Emblem, for example, and obviously they have a good relationship. So I just see them continuing to make games, and of course, whatever the new systems come out, they'll port over their engines and all that, and now you'll be able to play it in 4K 60 frames per second. It's going to look even sharper and better, but with the law of diminishing returns, I don't really see a company like Koei Tecmo taking too much of an advantage of what we've seen, because even if you look at like Attack on Titan, or you look at some of the other games, like yes, there was a jump from like the PS3 to the PS4 and all that, but it wasn't like a Final Fantasy remake type of jump, right? Or it wasn't like that big type of, oh my gosh, look at these graphics. Heck, it doesn't even look as good as like Final Fantasy 15. So I don't see them taking that type of jump, but of course it's going to look better. It's going to play good and all that, but I don't see them dropping all of it because they always make their engines pretty much like cross-gen and be able to make stuff like on PC and make it run and look really good, then also make it on Switch. So I don't really think things are going to change too much from that perspective. Now, there are other Japanese smaller companies, obviously NIS, they work with Falcon. We have some other companies that do make stuff, some indie developers here, and they're all pretty much going to be supporting the Nintendo Switch. Obviously, the smaller the company is, the more success that they see on the system or that they've had on the system, they're going to continue supporting them. But like I stated before, man, it's going to be interesting because a lot of the Japanese developers, you know, heading into like the last gen or this current gen, obviously the Wii U wasn't a big seller. So a lot of these Japanese developers did not believe in Nintendo's platform or anything that they're going to call a home system, right? They believed in maybe what they can do in the portable space, but this system was completely different. It's a hybrid. They didn't think, are people going to gravitate it more towards a home console? It's going to be more towards a portable system. And pretty much what happened is that Nintendo got the home console base and they got their portable base are all buying the Nintendo Switch. So it's pretty much catering to both. I mean, it was hard to see before it just because obviously it wasn't out there. You don't know how the market's going to respond. Obviously stronger systems with the PlayStation and Xbox, more games and all of that. But now that it's pretty much a bona fide hit, right, they're going to continue with that. So I don't really see them really straying too much. But at the same time, I definitely think that they're thinking like, oh my gosh, now we got to sit there and make sure our versions run on this. Now we got to do this and this. And obviously the system's going to get more expensive. So development's going to be interesting going forward. Now, I know we're talking about Japanese developers here, but when it comes to Western developers, I'm probably going to have like another video completely talking about that in a separate one, just because Western developers are a whole different atmosphere, a whole different landscape. They obviously don't care about Nintendo anywhere near as much as Japanese developers do. So we'll talk about that another video for another time. But what are you guys' thoughts on the Japanese gaming industry heading into this next generation with the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 5, and also the next Xbox? I would love to hear you guys' thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Going to check out the links in the description below. We got Facebook and Twitter. Going to give us a like and a follow on our social media. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Lets me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to PlayerEssence for the latest RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.